evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and I'm your host, Ellie, and this is the Investigator News World News. And I'm going to start off with China's race to unleash a killer robot for a soldier. But not only China, but us. They are working feverishly to get such a robot out. China and the U.S. are locked in a race to develop new weapons controlled by artificial intelligence, a battle that can determine the world's balance of power. The race with China to build a weapon system that is defining defense to challenge for the next 20 to 50 years. The report, which was relied on research from Special Competitive Studies Project, noticed that China has aggressively pursued an advancement into AR arms, but not only that, but the perfect soldier robot. That they don't have to put people on the field, but they could put a robot, drones, and dogs, they say, AI dogs. Could this be the new wave of the future in 20 years? But like a nuclear arms race before it, the AR arms race comes with constant dangers. These report of killer robots, such as subs, warships, fighter jets, drones, combat vehicles, all can operate with technology that has to be a force multiplayer on the battlefield without using a human being. Is something they said we need to think about. One such system being developed by Australian Navy in partnership with the US called Ghost Sharks is an unmanned AI powered submarine the size of a school bus. It seems to be working, they say. The United States is currently in yet another arms race, except this time it's against China. And instead of the Soviet Union, they say, they are looking at military technology powered by artificial intelligence that's going to be forever change warfare. Could we see an AI robot replacing the soldiers? Uh, in some ways, this is good, in some ways, bad. We could spend millions on a robot. Um, we could spend millions on a robot where it's not that much for a soldier, but the loss of life is what really um, feeds, they say, into this AI robot. That we would rather have um, a robot that isn't going to hurt a family or hurt a family of from themselves. And they say the mother's cries. Well, and the robot doesn't have a mom. So it's easier to throw a AI robot, a killer robot. Now, we've been talking about these soldier robots for a very, very long time. And uh, do we really need them? Or is this something in the future that we could slowly work on? I think we could slowly work on this, folks. I don't want to jump into this like we did the electric cars. We need to take our time and see if how it works. They already got drones that can swarm and in sync, and they can make maneuvers in sync. We've also got the AI dogs that carry medical equipment, and it also carries food and supplies to the soldiers. I see this working. Now, jumping ahead to a killer robot, I don't know. In the next 20 years, what China comes up with, what we come up with, and even Japan, Taiwan, with their knowledge of AIs and them having the top technology that we're gonna see a lot of changes in the next 20 years. Lots of them. You know, when I looked at T-Lob, and before I get to what's going on with uh, Israel. The other day, we know the hospital was bombed. We seen the messages from Hamas. We seen the direction that this missile went. It coincides with the messages by Hamas. So it was Hamas did this, but we seem to have a squad in our Congress that is spreading lies. Now, it wouldn't be so bad. Them spreading lies can be contained, but the lies being spread by the media for propaganda is another. When they did this, the colleges went crazy. The protests around the globe went nuts. They started burning embassies. Then we had colleges around the United States that did protests that were talking about doing away with Jewish people. I don't know what I'm allowed to say. Uh, Community standards for YouTube is very sticky right now, but we know what they're saying. We know what they're saying. We know what they're spouting. Get If you got kids in these colleges, get them the hell out. Just get them out. We don't need this. We even have, I even heard today a professor that said when she was hired, they told her she had to be um, white, anti Jewish, a whole bunch of antis just to get the job. This is administration doing this. This isn't professors that are doing it on their own. And yes, the professors are doing this on their own. But what happened when T-Lob spouted the lies? The news spouted the lies. Well, we had an insurrection at the Capitol. They all went to the Capitol and spouted, ceasefire, ceasefire. Quite a few people were arrested, but they were in the Capitol because of her lies. Now, we don't know for sure about the vote, and Trump said go peacefully to the Capitol. They went angrily to the Capitol. This is an insurrection. And Miss Green is going to look at everything with T-Lob and the squad to maybe file impeachment on them. They need to. Are they coming out today and saying, oh, no, we were wrong? No, they think they're right. In fact, they said what happened in Gaza with Hamas, with the babies, the kids, never happened. It did. It did. I seen the pictures. I have a source over there that went and looked. It really did happen. And for our media to jump on this and say, Hamas is okay, Palestinians are okay. Now, if you watch me and William last night, what do we do when it's done? Well, Egypt don't want them. Jordan don't want them. Nobody wants them. And get this, Biden is thinking about bringing these Palestinians here, like he did with the Afghanistanis, I guess that's what they're called. How many will be Hamas? Do we know? Why is he going to think about bringing them over? And then he goes, now he's getting on tonight, folks, in probably an hour or so. And he wants to give money to Palestinian aid. Is that aid going to be used by Hamas? Do we know? Can he guarantee? Why are we giving humanitarian aid to Iran or Ukraine when we have found out over and over and over again it's been abused through the decades? It's always used for the purpose of war. It's never really helped the people. And we have found out even some of the aid in Ukraine has went to soldiers, which is a good thing. And then whatever's left, it gets to the people. Now, already we have seen some of the aid that is put forward to Palestinians has been sucked up and used, and Hamas has electricity and water, but the Palestinians don't. And that's something we need to think about. And it's not the fact that we're giving millions and billions to uh, all of these countries. And even Taiwan and Ukraine, and we're giving it to um, Israel or Hamas. And we're doing this all over the world. And Trump said everybody else needs to pay their fair share. That's all he asked, is everyone else pay their fair share. This was the plan of the man. Because remember, folks, I'm not about politics. I'm about what plan does um, the individual have to make our country better again. Who cares, MAGA or whatever, folks? Get away from that. Get to where you're going to look at everybody and to see who has the best plan for this country, because our lives depend on it. They can't keep printing this money for aid, and they're printing and they're printing and they're printing, and then the taxes roll down to you, and then the inflation goes. We can't let them keep handing out aid that ends up in the hands of terrorists. We have got to sanction them, and that's the way we used to do it 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. If they had terrorists, you don't get aid. You don't get nothing. You get sanctioned until you quit doing what you're doing. And we don't see that today. We have got an out of control Congress, out of control Senate, out of control Department of Justice, the Pentagon, the State Department, FBI. They're all out of control. But yet they still get the money, they still get their checks. And who's paying it? You are. And they give themselves raises all the time. They open new offices, put their friends in these offices. Who pays for it? You do. And your taxes go up, and inflation goes up. When is this all going to stop? That we ever heard that the GOP is going to stop them from spending this money? Only on the budgets or omnibus. Remember, they held out on the budget, and then all of a sudden, we see the Democrats throwing in these tiny little packages. Well, Green New Deal, Green New Deal. Well, even the energy companies are now looking off offshore wind generators, and they're saying, you know what, it's not working. If we do this, we're going to have to raise the cost of energy and electric to our users. So increase of electric and gas, no gas. And even Europe is talking about doing away with all fossil fuel cars next year. Next year. I thought it was 2037, 2035, 2030. How come all of a sudden we're starting to hear next year? Why are they rushing it? Makes no sense. And as they keep you busy over watching Israel, I know you guys want to find out what the up to date. But when I'm going to teach you something, when it's all over here and it's all busy, busy, and watch Ukraine and watch Israel, and where are we not looking? We're not looking at Taiwan, and that's something that me and William wanted to show you last night. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for busy, busy. It's like the earthquakes, huh, Karen? When it gets real quiet, we know something's happening. Well, it got busy in Ukraine, busy in Israel. I knew this was going to happen in Israel. It was only a matter of time before Hamas or Hezbollah struck. They've been doing it for decades. It was only when they got enough from Iran that they said, okay, we're going to do this. But guess what got really quiet in the news? China and Taiwan. And then we seen stuff happening, little things over there happening. And we didn't pay attention. The news isn't paying attention. Why? Because let's worry about Israel. And I'm not trying to take away from Israel. I'm not trying to take away from Ukraine. I'm trying to teach you that we have to start looking worldwide now. We've got Ukraine, we got Israel, we got stuff going on in Haiti, we got stuff going on in Somalia. We've even had attacks in Iraq. We've had attacks in Syria. This is starting to be a very violent world in all places. And if uh, we have these antis protesters, they need to be stopped. The protesters are the college students, and I hope you guys have caught that. And if you're new, welcome, and you're going to learn something here. I don't know how many times I've seen Antifa there doing peaceful protests, and at night the same people wearing the same things are being the destructive, setting fires and causing a lot of problems. Same way with the students. They're doing the protests, and then they're creating havoc and looting and uh, doing a rush on the stores, and they're setting them on fire, and they're burning our flags and all that. And you start looking, and they're like, well, wait a minute, that guy in the plaid, that's the same plaid, the guy with the long blonde hair or brown hair, yeah, and with that same color backpack. Now he is nighttime, and he's got Molotovs. Well, did he have Molotovs during the day? I think it's time. I don't want to stop freedom of speech. I want to stop the protest. If we could protest peacefully, that'd be great. But come 7 o'clock, you know what? Go home. Go home. Or it gets dark, go home. Because we know when it gets dark, that's when time after time after time. How many protests have we seen that turned into riots and people losing businesses the second it gets dark? It's time to tell them they have to go home. When they did try it during George Floyd and Trayvon Martin, and there was a lady down, I believe, in Georgia. I don't want to misquote her name. Um, they were fine during the day. You know, they had their signs, and it was hateful. It was horrible. They had threats. But then the second it got dark, what happened? They don't care who they burn out. It could be an African American, and they'll burn down somebody that's African American that built this from their parents, their grandparents, spent generations to get this business going, only for a riot from a peaceful protest, burning them out and taking everything. So, um, that's, we do need to look at that. But the thing is the Biden wars. How many wars have started um, since 2020 when he went in office? Now, Trump went around and he said, don't do it. Don't do it. And they didn't do it. Why? There was something about Trump. And whether you like him or not, there was something about Trump when he went and said, don't do it. They didn't do it. They didn't start no wars. They didn't send no missiles. They did a little bit in Israel, but we didn't see Ukraine or Russia. He told Putin, don't do it. Putin didn't. Zelensky, I believe he was telling Zelensky, don't pick at Russia. Build your own country up. And that's the problem with Gaza. And I've talked about this with William, where they're getting this money. Why aren't they building an infrastructure that they can take care of their own people? They're not. They're buying weapons. They're buying more and more and more weapons. The same way up in Lebanon and Syria. I watched Syria become rubble that's never built back up. Why? Because all the money they get, they're putting into missiles and war military equipment. And it's the aid. It's the aid that they're receiving from around the world. It's not just us. Uh, they get aid from other countries. And when we ask, okay, let's see your spreadsheets, let's see your lists of where the stuff went to. Oh, you don't have a right to see it, or they don't have it. Or someone like a country like Iran, do you really think they're going to give the United States a list of who they're sending money to and what it's being spent on? We can't even find out from Obama era of the 6 billion on pallets that went to Iran, what it actually went for. They said humanitarian aid. No, I don't think so. When you start talking to the people over there, they're denying they're getting anything. They're just getting locked up or killed for anti um, Iran military extremists. And look back. I know everybody says, "Oh, Sally Struthers got fat. Well, she must have ate all the aid." No, let's not go there. Look at when we were sending, the money to Africa. We Are the World. Remember the big video? They raised millions of dollars. What happened to that? We are the world. We are the children. Let's keep on giving. And they said we have a choice to make. I don't remember all the words of the song, but it really moved everybody to give, to give, to give to the aid. Where'd that money go? Because if we look at from the time that video went on to what we're seeing today, everybody sure got a lot of missiles and military equipment. So did the aid go to help people starving? Because that's what, 3, 4 decades ago, and they're still starving in Somalia. Everybody's still hungry. We got homeless in our own country, starving. Is the aid? I believe this aid is a way for the governments to find a way that they could give money to a purpose, but it's up to the country to decide how it's spent. Now, Biden will be speaking tonight, and the first thing you see on there is aid to Israel, but it's going to go pretty much to the Palestinians. Is that a payoff because Joe Biden decided to side with Israel? And he has been pro Hamas or pro Palestinian all this time, him and his administration. But it's what came up second. Aid to Ukraine. Zelensky has been going NATO to the UN to country begging people for funding. And of course, we can't, the Senate and Congress saying, we're not giving them no more. We're not going to give them no more. Well, now Joe Biden is going to give them more money. And he found a way to do it. Now, I could be wrong, but I bet I'm right. When they said aid to Israel. Okay, let's just give the aid to Israel. Why are we giving to Ukraine? Give them more weapons, more money to fight Russia when the war is dwindling down so far that it could end. We give them more money, guess what? It's back up and it's roaring again. And the money we give to the Palestinians for humanitarian aid, well, if the aid is knocking at the door coming out of Egypt and Hamas won't let it in, how are we going to get aid to these people? And then no one will take them. Why don't you just let the aid in, see how many people are fed, and then we decide whether or not we send them money. They don't think of it like that. It's just spend, spend. It's like, I don't want to say a woman in a purse store. I don't mean to be offending women, But what do they say? When you get a lot of money, it burns a hole in your pocket. Yeah. Well, they keep printing money, and it's an unlimited amount that they can print and print and print. And I just told you towards the beginning of the show, and who pays for it? You do. All this aid. Let's stop this. And the only and you say, well, what good am I going to do? It's just me. You got to start finding out who's who. Now the other thing is a society foundations owned by SOROS, because I can't say his name. Don't get me. He's closing down half of his foundations. Now, I went and looked this afternoon because I called William on it, and I started looking. The Clintons are doing the same thing. Obama's doing the same thing. Everybody with the millions and billions, the millions and billionaires, are all starting to sell their foundations or close their foundations. Now, what I've heard is they have went into these offices of these foundations of that's paying into the DA and the judges. They're demanding all electronics be handed over. That's what the FBI does. But this is the people going in and closing down these companies. That's what they did here in Arkansas. That's what the Clintons did, except for they were smashing phones and they were shredding. And they even had Oliver North shred. And remember the Iran Contras? I don't know. I shredded. They told me to shred, so I shredded, and I shredded and giggling about it. And his secretary, all I was told was to shred. So I shredded and I shredded. Well, same thing now. Give me all the electronics. Why? What's in the electronics that Mr. George doesn't want us to know about? Well, it could be a number of things. It could be his son. It could be the foundations have been caught and have to start showing their tax paperwork to see where his money for the foundations are going. Or it could be that dozens of DA, dozens of judges, and people that work in the court system, the police department, all that, are now going down and being caught with the foundation's money in their bank accounts or in their statements. It could be any of the above, but I'm glad they're all going down. Did they get caught? But as we have seen in the past, all they have to do is run to a country with political asylum or a type of asylum like we've seen with Assange, and they're protected. We won't be able to touch them, and we won't be able to hit them up with nothing. And they're going to get away with murder. Well, in a sense. Some. So, this is, we're seeing a lot that is happening, like I said, behind the scenes. And then we had the Saudi king say, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to allow people into Egypt or Cairo, but at the same time, they have joined BRICS. And me and William brought this up. Now, I looked at an article today, and King Abdullah, um, they're not going to let them in. But at the same time, they have joined the Belt and Road Initiative for the Middle East and in Egypt. And we've seen it in Africa. More and more, we're starting to see that the Belt and Road Initiative that was failing 5 to 6 years ago is now becoming stronger and stronger, and more countries are buying into it. Why? Oh, when I looked into it and investigated this, I'm starting to see if you do the Belt and Road Initiative for a very small country, not only do you get humanitarian aid, but you'll get military equipment to be able to protect your country. Why? Because China's there. And what does China do when they get into these countries? It's always a port. They got to have the port to get the Belt and Road Initiative, the railroad stuff in. You got to get it in there, so you got to have a port, and and usually just like Papua New Guinea, where they set up a small military little base, and then all of a sudden you've got all these Chinese officials or policemen starting to come in and running these companies to where they don't hire the locals, they bring in their own. And then all of a sudden it's taken over by China. Now, and that's what the big complaint was, this gentleman from Papua New Guinea quite a few years ago. Karen, you remember that? So um, we are um, we are still waiting to see how far this goes. And Sky News in Australia, they put a lot of this out because they fight China just over fishing, and they're seeing more and more and more. They're taking over certain areas, and they've even offered them the Belt and Road. They almost fell for it, and then they backed out of it. Um, Open Society is the foundation that I was talking about with George. So open societies, they're closing down 50 to 60% of, and they're just walking in the office saying, "You're all fired. Give me your electronics." Um, Biden is lifting the sanctions in Venezuela. Why? To a dictator. Why? Well, um, he wants to buy gas from Venezuela to fill up our reserves, as they're cutting. Uh, and Texas oil guys are saying, you know what? We've been cut so bad we can't even drill in a new spot. We can't use our old production that we know we would have for the United States. It would lower the gas prices. Biden says, no, you're making too much money. You're raising your prices. It's not it's not America raising prices. It's where the main supply of oil is coming from, which is Saudi, and so they're raising the prices. And then, of course, the oil drillers here are being blamed for it. So he's going to lift sanctions to a dictator, and he's going to close off, and nobody is going to be able to drill. They're working towards non-drilling by 2027. That's here in the United States. So we'll only be buying gas from Venezuela or other people. Miss Green um, wants to censor the squad, and she's going after them. Uh, you know, we need to show the support, and her district needs to show her the support on this, because we can't have this hatred in Congress. It's so deep that we're looking at a race of people that, and I thought they didn't, I thought they were against that, but no, I guess not. They put the LGBTQ whatever. That's not even a race. That's a state of mind. But we're going to put so much into that and say, "Oh, you're a racist if you don't believe in it." Well, this is way different. This is a race of people, even if it's Palestinian or China, or in Libya or in Russians. It's a race, and they are so anti uh, that they want to bring out a certain race that they're going to go after, but nobody goes after LGBTQ. I probably said it wrong, because they're afraid to. They don't want to offend them. but it's not even a race. That is a mind. What's in the mind? I mean, we might as well go after people like chocolate that are overweight. Say, oh no, you're bad. You're a racist because you won't eat salad, so you're a racist against salads. I know none of it does make sense, folks, and we're seeing it pushed in our colleges. We're seeing it pushed everywhere. And I don't mean to pick on the LG group, but it makes a lot of sense because now they're even letting the trannies in the library saying it's a great thing. You know how many times I went places as Mrs. Claus? Oh no, we're happy holidays. Can't have Mrs. Claus. Maybe you can open the doors for the kids or open doors for people. And I'm like, Mrs. Claus doesn't open doors. She hands out candy canes, sings, and makes kids happy. I don't open doors. You know that? Yeah. So was that racist? Yes, it was. I want to get off of that. So, um, now when we are looking at the violence around the world, we have to look who's lying about it. Me and Williams talked, and he says, "Oh, I think that's propaganda." I say, "Yeah, I think it is too." I think this is a lie. He says, "Yeah, I think so too." And we find it very hard to, when we start looking at the mainstream media and it's propaganda and it's lies, and they're getting away with it. Not only are the media getting away with it, folks, they are pushing propaganda. They are pushing um, the lies. You know what it reminds me of? And William might even remember this. Back in Germany, they had the first radios that came out. And uh, when the Germans found out about this, they found out they could block everything except for the speeches and letting people know what was going on. But they were pushing the propaganda. So we're seeing quite a few of media, mainstream media, news, and spreading lies. And you know what I thought was really odd is that CNN was even saying they're catching untruths. Well, I thought maybe they were looking at themselves, but they weren't. They were talking about how the mainstream media, who they get their info from. So who's telling the media? Well, we know from the Trump impeachments and even before then, where there was leaks to the Wall Street Journal or the Times or some of these head news publications. And we were seeing them get the info, they twisted it all up, and they put out what sounded real good as propaganda. So, what's propaganda and what's a lie? Well, propaganda should be innocent and nothing really bad happen. And a lie could hurt people and cause wars. We have moved from propaganda and Operation Mockingbird, where you go through the channels and there's got to be some really good news on. You go channel to channel to channel and you listen and they're saying the same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. That was Operation Mockingbird, and that was against the law, and it went to court. And they said you can't do this. Now look what we got. And you know, I've been seeing Operation Mockingbird since then. I seen it in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, the 2000 teens, and now we're going into 2020s, and it's worse. And we can't get them for because of freedom of speech, but the FCC has a duty to look to see who is giving fake or misinformation and who's actually and in propaganda and who's actually giving the right stuff. And until we get people in power with a really good plan, we're going to have to take a really long look at who's the head of FCC. We're going to have to start looking at who's in charge of um, that's giving the media leaks. And okay, I'm going through my stuff here. Um, you remember when that guy in Texas? I believe he was. I don't know if he was a Republican or Democrat. Didn't matter. He got carjacked. Well, we're seeing an increase of carjackings because that's pretty much about 60, 70% of what's being taken. And by the way, my great niece lost her car in San Diego, got stolen. So, I mean, it's closer to home now for me. And that's why I had to sit and look at this and what's going on. Because we even have officials, and I can't say who because it was given to me as a tidbit of info from one of my resources that you guys are probably going to figure out who this is. It's going to the airport and following very rich women around to steal their clothing. Now we thought this him her was just stole a few suitcases. Well, come to find out when the airport security started looking back, they started seeing him her um, following rich women around, seeing them getting out of these luxury cars or a limo or even taxis with very expensive jewelry and following them around and taking their stuff or watching them when they get off the planes. So he's a airport hangouter, I guess, to take stuff. And how many of them do we have in office? I mean, look at when we talked about infrastructure last night, how lame that was to be yelling. But she's talking, but then a week later we find out she was wrong. We've become so corrupt, and I think it's both sides. Because look at the Jim Jordan count. And now get this. Here's a tidbit of info I found out today. They want to throw in Cheney because they know it's a Republican. But all they would need is those 20 Republicans, right? And the Democrats would all want to put her in, and Cheney gets Speaker of the House. How scary is that? Wow. And I thought about that and I said, oh, no, 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 no. We don't need her. We just got rid of her with January 6th. We're trying to get her out. And this is the idea that the Democrats have came up with, and they're whispering in the halls of the Capitol. Well, sometimes they whisper and talk in front of the wrong people, and it got out. That's the plan. If they can keep it and keep it going like that, then they can throw her in and sweep it, and they can have their best buddy on the Speaker of the House, and that would be Cheney. Can't let that happen. And as boy, I'm all over the place today. Cher, Cher says if Trump or any part of his administration gets into office, she's out of here. Bye, Cher. She should have went with Madonna and got out when it was going. Huh? Well, how weird that the heat's coming down on her for some things. Her own daughter, son, been talking and of things that happened when she was growing up and why she became a transgender. Well, it's all coming out with Hollywood. Not only that, it's coming out of the minds from or mouths of Oprah and Epstein and Weinstein, and all of it's start to come out. So when you turn up the heat on these stars, guess what they say? Bye, bye. But look at who's fled so far. And part of the movie scene, the music, everything. Everybody's saying bye all of a sudden. Now that the heat is on for exposing these people for what they've done to children in the Hollywood music and TV industries. because they're talking. They're all starting to talk. Um, and this is an odd one because Jorn van der Sloot, he is the one that, now I thought this was settled a long time ago. This is about Natalie Holloway, folks. Well, he's coming out and he said, yeah, he killed her on Aruba Beach after refusing unwanted sexual advances. He got mad and he killed her, he said. A little bit more detail to it. I thought he was arrested and charged a long time ago for doing this out of information or evidence. Well, now he's coming out and say, yeah, he did it. He did it. Now we know. Does this close the book on Natalie Holloway? It may, but how many other college students do we have right now that are loose cannons? I'm worried we have a lot. You know, when you want to hold up a sign of death on a certain people, certain races, a certain how they feel about the United States, you got to wonder how many more of Natalie Holloway's will happen. It bugged me when I heard that this morning because I already thought it was settled, but it wasn't. It really, really, really wasn't. Um, And we're finding that North Korea weapons are being found with Hamas using them. Not only are we seeing Iran or Hezbollah stuff, but Iran through Hezbollah, but we're starting to see um, military equipment or missiles that were sent by North Korea. So we know North Korea is helping them out. Um, and it's a big part of BRIC, and that's China and Russia and Iran and oh goodness, there's a bunch of them. Um, uh, all of the antis, and they take in all the terrorists. William could probably list it on in chat. There's a whole bunch of people in BRICS, and that's what's really scaring me because it splits the world in half. And are we're looking at corruption and dictators, or do we want to look at terrorists? You know, that's why we need to change America right now. We need to build it better. It's not about the man, it's about the plan, folks. We got to get a good plan in here. The GOP is all over the place. GOP is like, why did Gatz? Why did he do that? Why did he do what he did? I'd like to really know. I mean, wasn't okay, so McCarthy didn't stick to his guns. He didn't stick to his promises. But why not start looking for the next speaker, getting the votes? Because this is how Nancy Pelosi does it. Nancy Pelosi doesn't take nothing to the floor until she knows she has a vote for it. She just go and go and go and go until someone takes it. That's what the GOP does, folks. We got to stop this. We got to start getting people in office that's really going to make things better. All the way down to your city council, your AG, your mayors, your whoever you vote in, you have to make sure it's about what you want in your community, not what they want in the community. Because I keep hearing this when I call these senators and congressmen. Well, they do listen to the people, but they have their own ideas that would make our community way better. And I'm like, really? By making it communist and Marxist and fascist? And then, of course, they hang up on me. But we have to start looking. You got to start asking. When you see a judge up, you call them up and say, what party are you? They say, it's none of your business. Say, yes, it is. Because if you're not going to do it, I'll just skip that line. I'll throw Mickey Mouse in, write Mickey Mouse in. We're getting so close to 2020 for elections. And if we don't start changing the mindset of the people, because even the Democrat, they're getting mad. They don't like Biden. They think he's too old. I mean, his wife had to rush up on stage and show him where to go to get off stage because he had no clue where he was at. That's got to tell you something. When he is looking around like, where do I go? Where do I go? And Jill runs up there and says, oh, this way, this way. Have we ever had a president that bad before, so mindless? We need someone strong, someone powerful, someone that's going to get in there and say, well, I'm done with the policies of the United States. I'm tired of the crime. I'm tired of the killings. I'm tired of the terrorists. I'm tired of open border that we've had, 1,200 terrorists try to get in that we caught? That we caught. What about the ones we didn't know about? They say there it could be twice as many. 3,000? Do you feel good about 1,000 terrorists in this country? What about 2,000, 3,000? They've been getting in for the last 10 years. Okay, so let's say 1,000 a year. That's 10,000. Maybe it's 20. How many terrorists are too much for the United States with an open border? I'm right on this, folks. I'm right. I've been looking into this for so long, and it scares the hell out of me. It scares the hell out of me. I see MS-13 being embraced by the Democrat Party. I see Hamas being embraced right now. I see gangs being embraced. ISIS, Iran. And it really does scare me because even China, we've got China spies. We're catching China spies. What are these spies going to do? What's the plan? So how many, when we have cartel on the border, and I don't know if y'all knew, just outside of El Paso, there's a little place that the cartels actually took over and made it kind of like a miniature little city out of the city that was there. And it was on our side of the border. And thank goodness for some Marines, ATF, DEA, and Border Patrol, and a few others, Homeland Security. They went in and they kicked their butt out. They took back what they call the island. That's what we need. That's what we need. Now, the border is, Abbott has got to where he can put wires and containers back up. He's going to start putting wires on the border, on the Texas border. He's going to block these people out. We've got to. What about Canada? Canada can't even control what comes in on our northern borders. It's so open that if they don't, it's like the free for all at the southern border. It's a free for all at the northern border. And of course, those that get over, we're giving them aid. Hey, let's give them their loans. Let's get them into college. Hey, we're going to give them all the jobs. I don't know about you, but if I can't go to a restaurant where they can't even speak English. What do we do? What about the teachers that's got us to teach these kids? We're having to pay more for education this year than we've ever had. Why? Because we have to bring in teachers that know the language. How many languages are there that we got to bring these teachers in on. They're putting, used to be an average about 25 students per classroom from K to 12. It's now 40 to 50 for one teacher, and maybe an aide to help. And now we're bringing in more aides. So the kids that have come into this country that can't speak our language are now being kind of tutored in their own language. They're not learning ours. They're not teaching them the American language. They're just helping these kids speak or teach them their language, but in America. I always thought when you came to America and you wanted the American dream, you became an American. That's how I grew up, but I guess that's not how it is now. And that's why I think we need to start changing the aid that where is it going to? What's it being used on, even in this country? And we've got to do something to where Biden can't start no more wars. No more, no more. Don't give Hamas money. Don't give Ukraine money. Don't give Iran money. And they're still fighting to freeze the funding uh, for what we give Iran. They're trying to freeze that money. And they're being fought with by the Biden administration. And by golly, why doesn't he just look at Hamas and these leaders and say, don't do it? It has worked in the past. It's worked in the past. How did Obama keep from having wars? Well, he sided with the Muslims. He loved the Muslims. Of course, when you love the Muslims and you give them everything they want, they're not going to start a war. Should we be doing that? We got China killing Muslims. How much sense is all of this making? It's a world of chaos. A world of chaos, folks. And so what's happening in Israel? Well, Biden is left, Blinken is left. They said, oh, Biden says it's okay for the ground troops to move into, to go ahead and go. It's not up to Biden. That is not his country. Dadgummit. And the media is running with it. Oh, Biden says they can have a war. It's not up to Joe Biden whether or not Israel can fight terrorism. And I heard that and it sickened me. It's up to Bibi Netanyahu and it's up to Horzig. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. Herzog. I think it's Herzog, the president. It's up to them if they're going to send the troops in and win. It's not up to Joe Biden to say, okay, you guys can have a war. If so, they wouldn't be firing missiles into Gaza for 10, 12 days. They wouldn't have been doing it. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for, we had to give Netanyahu and Israel president the go-ahead to have a war. It's not up to Joe Biden and this administration. And when you see this terrorist group that is using their own people, their own supporters as human shields, it's got to tell you something. But that's how they are. As they've been doing that for thousands of years, folks. Nothing new. They always do it. They did it in Syria. They did it in Iraq. They did it in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran. You know, if they can't get a hold of the enemy to throw up there as a human shield, then of course, they're going to look for other things to put up there. But all the supporters that were dancing in the street saying how much they loved Hamas for what they were doing, they're holding captive. They won't let them leave. They will not let them leave, and they're not letting humanitarian aid. go to them, food and water and shelter. No, but Hamas has got electric, they got water, and they got a nice warm place to stay. It isn't down in the tunnels. You don't think that. The higher ups of the terrorists don't live in caves. They don't live in tunnels. They don't live in burned out buildings. They got a place that's nice. Probably right there on the ocean, overlooking it. So anyway, folks, let's see if I've missed anything. Um, um, now, Saudi Arabia usually doesn't speak up, but they're telling pretty much if you're a non-Muslim to leave Syria, leave Lebanon, leave Damascus, get the hell out. I don't know what's up. That's all the what I was getting. Um, and not only that, yeah, it's not just Saudi Arabia saying that, but then we had North Korea even telling Ukraine, you better watch out. We just sent a nice, pretty package to Russia. So, I told you that there's rumors that this was going on, but then I found an article with WION that said, "Oh no, he's gloating about it." And now we got Saudi Arabia saying, "Get the hell out." Um, and not only that, but it's getting even more intense in Taiwan to where we're starting to send ships that way. So here we go to the next one. When Ukraine dies down, is it all going to build up over there in the Pacific? It probably will. The wars aren't done. The military industrial complex probably loving all this stuff. I don't know how much of it they get. I don't know if they still exist. William, do they exist? Um, Turkey is eyeing of Syria, William says. See? Yeah, everybody's going to jump in, and it just, I don't like saying the World War III report on Wednesday nights, but it is a World War III report, and it's getting to where I'm having to do it on my news too. I want to move on. I want to move to, let's find out what the government's doing because, like I said, we've got to fix the United States. So, all right, folks, that is it. We have trivia tomorrow night, and I'm looking forward to some trivia. And I'll have more news. William was wanting me to take a look at some things, and uh, I think I'll put it on tomorrow night's show because I have due news. Trivia is without news, folks. Just remember that. So invite your friends and family that don't care about conservative news. Say, no, wait a minute. She's just got trivia. Nothing in there, just trivia. Pure fun. All right, folks. You guys have a wonderful Thursday. And let's take a look at who's running for office. Start looking at it. They're even going state to state to redo the Dominion machines, the voting machines. I don't know if that's good or if that's just scary. They're going state to state, and they're taking a look at the machines that they had issues with for proper counts. They're now making them get new ones. They're also looking at boxes to where, where the drop-off boxes are, to where um, you can only put one in, right? And if it's consecutive, where you try to put two or three in, it closes. I don't know. We have got to fix something. We can't, and not only that, but they're making each state go through and take out all their dead voters. We might be getting somewhere. We might be able to change our system. Maybe not. But it's getting closer. It's getting closer. Uh, maybe a year away, a little over a year away, and everything can change. William says 2025 is going to be something. I bet you it is. Because when we get everybody in new again, it could go our way or it could go the wrong way. So, all right, folks, subscribe, hit the like button, and share the show. This was a great show, full of some info. And we even had a guy come in, I think last night or the night before, and said, yeah, they're right. The truth in news. All right, folks, take care. Have a wonderful Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow for some trivia, news, and the weather. The weather and lifestyle news. Come on back, folks, and bring a friend.